All right, ready? All right, bring this Town of Vinalhaven Board of Selectmen meeting for March 1st, 2022 to order. Roll call. Leslie Dyer, Eric Gasparini, myself, Pam Alley, Andy Dorr, Town Manager, Elvis Bunker, Deputy Town Clerk. Jake Thompson is absent at the moment and may be arriving later. Number 2, approve the agenda.
So moved.
Just the one addition.
One addition, sorry, we have an addition to 9 new business, 9A Knox County Sheriff Contract. I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Seconded, all those in favor. All right. Number 3, minutes, approve the minutes from the February 22nd, 2022 budget workshop.
So moved.
Seconded, all those in favor. Number 4, approve and sign treasurer's warrant number 35. So moved.
Second.
All in favor. Number 5, communications. Seeing none. I will move on. 6, speakers from the floor. Seeing none, we'll move on. 7, committee and department reports appointment. 7A, housing committee reports.
I wrote another grant. I called the John T. Gorman Foundation. They encouraged me to write a grant for the same thing I wrote to the Maine Community Foundation for $7,038 to cover the cost of transportation, lodging for the heat, for the 19 homes that would qualify for heat. And they need a letter from the town saying that they authorized this committee to apply for the grant. I did this because I'm not sure we're going to get the Maine Community Foundation grant. And since I knew this other one was coming up and that it would cover the same thing, low-income people, elders, community support, things like that. So I wrote to Andy and I didn't realize that I would have to get another letter. And Andy said I needed really to, I probably should have come to him first before I wrote the grant. But it was, I thought it was due yesterday. It was due tonight, it turns out, at 5. But it was due yesterday at 5. So I sent it in yesterday. And now, of course, I'm coming to you after the fact for the letter. But it's exactly the same request as the Maine Community Foundation for exactly the same thing.
It's for the same purposes we already
Yeah.
approved, but I don't have a problem with that. Do we need to make a motion or?
I think technically, I mean, where the community gives the board the authority to apply on their behalf for grants.
What was the name of this one again? I'm sorry.
It's the John T. Gorman, Gorman.
John T. Gorman.
I think he was part of the LL Bean family.
Okay.
Was very interested in disadvantaged members of communities.
So what would the motion be? Do we authorize you to
To
submit?
apply for the.
apply it.
John T.
All right,
Gorman.
I make a motion that we authorize
Housing Committee.
Andy and the housing committee, however you want to put it, to apply for the, sorry, say it again, the
John T. Gorman.
John T. Gorman grant in support of the housing committee's actions.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded, all those in favor? All right,
Thank you very much. I wanted to let you know that Darlene Beckman had spoken with Yvonne Thomas, because Yvonne's connected with the Island Institute, and Yvonne's very interested in the housing issues that we're talking about out here. And so Darlene's inviting her to our next meeting on March 7th. I know that Yvonne's position at the Island Institute is more educational based, but somehow she seemed very excited and eager about this. So I thought that was a really nice connection to let you know about, that we might be able to get some housing assistance from the Island Institute. And to let you know that the HEAP applications are at the church for people to get. And thanks to Andy, there's an ad in the wind about it. And it's also, I believe, on Facebook, right, Andy?
I don't know about that part, but it's in the wind.
Can someone put it on Facebook?
They can, that's the first time.
Thank you. Also, I think there's another takeaway from the housing assessment that's going to be on the wind, trying to let people know what came out of the housing assessment. So, some takeaways, we're putting those in from time to time. So it's not a surprise to people what people's needs are, what their concerns are, why people need housing, who needs housing. Don't want it to be a big surprise when it comes to town meeting, asking either for money or land or zoning changes. And they go, well, who are all these people? So hopefully we're giving people information as we go along.
Is that something you hope to present at the next annual town meeting, or is it gonna be something probably the following year?
Well, the zoning is one of those components, and I don't know whether we're gonna have a planner to look over some of these changes. Some members of the planning commission are checking with Mark Candage about fire codes, shoreline zoning about changing the zoning and the lot size requirements on the water.
Yeah.
Even if a lot doesn't go, it's in the shoreline zone, but it's not on the water, it's still within 250 feet of the water. And there was one other thing. There were three things that we needed clarification on, and members of the planning commission are supposed to be getting clarity on that.
Okay.
But how are we doing on the planner part?
I have not heard anything from one of the two still.
That's weird.
Yeah, we would like to have a second if we can, just to compare. But if they're not gonna respond, at some point we're gonna have to move on it, just to not slow things down, so. When was the last time you heard from the second?
They reached out and wanted to talk again. Second week of February, probably. I responded with just what days work for you and haven't heard back.
All right. So maybe we follow up with them again, just to see if they're still willing, and then if they'll respond. Okay.
Thank you.
They were very interested to begin with. So surprised that there's a radio silence on their part.
Yeah. Well, we might as well reach back out and see what they say. And if nothing comes of it, we'll have to move on with the one we did get information from. Okay. If that's all you had.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
support.
We'll move on to 7B, the engineer report.
Well, at least we got one on Friday. Should we get them on Friday? I don't believe.
Yeah, I
got
don't
it,
remember
so
seeing one, so.
it didn't get included. So it didn't come today, but it didn't. So generally, I mean, they've got, they've submitted the plans for the fire station, which I mentioned the last meeting. Mark and I still need to go through that with them. The transfer station, I also expected that to come in today, but apparently they're still working on that.
Okay.
I did express concern for not being able to get that project completed before summer. So I'm waiting for an answer on whether we think we're still going to be able to hit that or not.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
And
'cause it's now March, so.
yeah, and I agree, Penny's expressed concern about, getting too far into June before it's completed. And I would echo that and share that concern.
Right.
Might be able to slide it into May and by Memorial Day weekend, have it wrapped up if that, that might be fine, but when the June gets a little busy with contractors and fishermen moving gear, and the dump gets pretty busy again in June, so.
Right.
Waiting for more on that.
I mean, in worst case, we can push it to after the summer, right, if we had to.
Right, yeah, the goal, hope was just to look at it.
Yeah.
Because after summer, of course, we're gonna start construction on Main Street, right? So, be nice to have spread out the demand for the boat and challenge of housing and.
Yeah.
whatnot,
Right.
So. What was it, the Maine Coastal Program finalized the grant details for the Vinyl Cove project. I thought we were taking care of in December, but it turns out there were a few missing pieces on their end. So that is finalized now, and I think we were approved for, I think, like $28,000 or $29,000 for putting towards that study that we were talking about in Vinyl Cove, for the road flooding and the culvert. So engineers will be continuing to work on that, and they had the survey done this late fall already. I think last I knew they were just touching up that and trying to come up with design alternatives. That's still in the works, and they are still working on the High Street. I haven't heard where they stand on that yet, but the High Street drainage and sidewalk design that we had them do, having them do. Other than that, most effort and focus has been still on the downtown stuff. We did hear from someone from Representative Pingree's office this week, and we did update the budget request when we applied for that. source of funding almost a year ago, for the congressional funding. We've gotten 2 other big grants since that has gone in, and so they acknowledging that some of those other grants that have been funded or awarded will fund some components of what we submitted, so they allowed us to modify and update that based on what we know today. So that got turned back in yesterday evening. Still asking for the 1.4 million, and should Congress be able to meet and consider the budget for FY22, it might be considered and decided.
Okay.
But it was good news to hear from them nonetheless, because we hadn't really heard anything since like November.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear something.
So we did put that in.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, move on to 8. Old business, transfer station improvements, review proposed improvements. So that, we were hoping to have that, but we did not get it. All right, so we will move that to hopefully the next meeting.
Yeah, they did say, Megan said it would be available for the next meeting.
All right.
It better be.
It will be.
We need to move on that
It
too.
will be.
All right, 9, new business, 9A, Knox County Sheriff contract.
The only changes, I can't remember, I apologize if I shared this with you, the only changes they had in there were for the dates and from last year's contract, were the dates of the contract and then the couple of board names, their part and ours.
So, okay,
They're still proposing the exactly for this, the hours. I mean, currently it's 50% of the cost for the first resident deputy and then 100% of the cost for the second deputy. There is in their CBA reference, they talk about on page 2 of that contract. Town shall pay county additional $75 per day of the regularly scheduled work week, not to exceed $300 per officer. That was me last year. I'm just going to finalize the CBA. They're acknowledging the cruiser, the contract changed last time. That's a responsibility of theirs at this point. Just a chance to check in. They're going to take it up. The commissioners are taking it up next Tuesday, so they're just as a reminder to check in and see if there were any concerns from the board here. And
I mean, if there's no changes from the contract last year, I have no concerns at this time.
Right.
Obviously, if they haven't approved it, then it's not really ready for us to sign, so.
I mean, I don't, yeah,
Does anyone have any?
it'd be nice to see that second deputy,
Yes, I think we'd all like to see that.
but I mean,
No, I don't have any.
whatever. But yeah, I mean, the contract itself is fine.
It is what it is at this point.
It is what it is.
Right. Okay, so in their meeting next week, you
Next
said?
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, all right. Hopefully they don't have any major changes to it.
yeah, this is what they proposed. So unless the commissioners have
Yeah, I
other
don't-
thoughts, this is what the administration's put forward. So.
I mean, they approved it last year. I don't see why they would have any changes this year. So. Okay. So we'll wait for that approval. 9B budget workshop. Here we go.
Here we go.
Gave Eric some spreadsheets. I do have, Lizzie came in and helped. There's 10 books that have been printed. I think I have 4 more department sections to finish out. I mentioned earlier, like to work with Millie. So Millie has been hired as the Director of Public Works. We're able to work that out as
Good.
discussed. And so I'd like the opportunity to, I don't expect her to build the budget, but at least give her my thoughts on and any quick reactions she might have on the first few days on the job, before I finish printing that. But those will be ready by the end of the week.
Okay.
So just a quick kind of summary, or if you will, of the departments or lines that I just wanted to present tonight. Selectmen, admin, professional services, which includes legal and engineering, some of the insurance costs, tax, wage taxes, the septic site disposal fee that has stayed the same. We have kind of probably a need to check in on that. There's been a lot of activity, I think, on concerns for PFAs and septic sites. And so someone had asked the question if we knew where ours went, if there was a concern for any of that. So I haven't asked that question before, so I'm going to try and follow up and make sure that things appear okay there. And then general assistance and then the social services or donations. So just as a general overview, similar to what it looks like on the summary pages for each of these departments, showing 2020 and 2021 what the actual expenses were for those. 2022, what was budgeted for them, and then the proposal so far. In most cases, I am the department submitting it to on these ones. I did for the admin, and what I was trying to do after we talked at the last budget workshop, the proposal for some of those benefit changes. What I'm trying to do is have the department budget proposal column reflect current benefit packages, contributions, and then have my column represent what was largely put forward at the last meeting, just so you can see, what those look like and what that cost is for those. But some of these was able to keep pretty close from last year, with the exception of the admin one as it's presented. All the rest of them are a small increase, or in most cases holding last year.
Most of it's cut and dried anyway.
Yeah.
On this one.
Cut selectmen stipends.
I actually would propose to, as I was going through there, I don't know if would want to be consideration for increasing at least the chairpersons potentially. Acknowledging all the extra work now that Eric's stepped back. He showed us how much work it took, but I know this is something that the board doesn't generally consider it's wanting to raise in any case, but I know in a lot of places the chairman does get a little bit more, there's generally more time involved, but I don't know if that's anything that the board wants to consider or not. Department requested that it stay the same. Don't need any decisions today unless you wanted to go through. I was mentioning Margaret, so we have some of the budget committee members on the call, and then Dawn is here as well. So just want to acknowledge that, it explained to Margaret that there wasn't an expectation to have to approve any of these today as we go through them. This is kind of like the first view going through these departments. So just putting eyes on it and being able to think about it, and we can circle back towards the end if you want.
But if we do approve, then we don't, it's like, that's it.
There's always
More, we can always,
We can revisit before we
exactly,
print for the.
but we don't have to
Right.
discuss. We'll just say we've already decided that.
Yeah, I
make it-
think more flagging the ones that are concerning or you want to have more information
Right.
on, or just question. For right now, being able to kind of just look at it as a proposal and have time to think about it. Once I get later this week, get the full sheet together and put all the departments in, you'll see what the total impact is and changes are. That'll inform a little bit more of how you go back through and look at these ones that we talked about.
But some of the ones that we really don't, like insurance, et cetera, we might just as well pass them the proposal along, and then we won't have to,
Right.
further discuss it.
Yeah, the ones that aren't gonna change
Right.
because of the benefits changes, then, yeah, I don't mind going through.
Mhm.
Some problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. All right,
Just make it a little quicker later on.
yeah, we're gonna spend more time on certain subjects. anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, so to start then with, to go back to the selectmen stipend, do we want to discuss that now and just say whatever, yes, no?
Is there any discussion? I'm fine leaving it where it is.
I think it's fine. I think everybody's just on where they
This
are.
may be the day.
Exactly.
I wouldn't mind a cut for next year's budget. though.
Of course, because you
Yeah.
get it done in June.
All right. I move we approve the selectman salary line at $3,000. seconded. All those in favor? All right.
Look at that, like you cut so ready.
It's exactly the same.
Saving money already.
I guess
everywhere.
with inflation, it is a cut, right? We're getting less money, so there you go.
Woo, one down.
There you go. See, they all go like that.
As far as the admin goes, if you want to go to that one next. In the majority of the changes in this one, I tried to keep it just because of what was being proposed, really tried to keep it just to those that benefit option with the decision to support to increase the wage. That's another one that we have to acknowledge this in this presentation for the budget as well. But was able to largely keep these the same with the exception of the wage and benefits as proposed. The computer software, I still need to confirm, but where we didn't and haven't been able to commit to getting that software that I presented last year up and running, that digital budget book and in budget insights program that we talked about last year.
Yep.
That was a pretty substantial cost. It was almost $12,000 a year.
Yep.
It was supposed to help streamline some of what we do and the reporting opportunities and be able to share with the community better about how the budget's spent, what we've done with it. But I think I'm able to get us out of that where we just haven't had the capacity this year to try and get it going. We were in a hold pattern for that last year. And it gave me a reminder that the renewal was coming up soon. And so I called them and said, we still aren't in a position to move ahead on this. And I can't imagine that you'd want to have a client just sitting out there and be holding us to it if we don't have the resources. So I was told that we'd be able to believe ourselves in that contract. So
Okay, that's
Oh,
good.
okay.
just need to see the paperwork and get that signed. But so that was a reduction there in the computer software, acknowledging, representing that change. As far as revenue, offsetting revenues, there's really no new or different from what it was last year. Our only sources that we have to offset this budget account is the clerk and agent fees, and then any investment or interest earned on the checking account. It's there, which a couple years ago was a little more. I think last I knew the bank rates were like 0.4% perhaps, if that. And I think 2 years ago we had gotten to a point where we were 1.25. So actually a couple bucks coming in that one. So there's not, I don't know of any other opportunity for revenue that we've used for that, for what to go against this account, other than potential fund balance allocation. So I'm proposing that we'd have 17,500 in revenue, and then potential for 30 to 35,000 in undesignated fund balance to offset some of those increases as presented. Under the department column, you can see the taxation amount, the amount to be committed for this account would be up under the department requests. That's again the benefits largely staying what they are today. It'd be an increase of $9,000 or about $9,000. Whereas the consideration of the benefits that were presented last week, largely the health one, not
Yeah.
knowing how the positions that are open, would be filled in terms of dependents and healthcare cost to needs, and then to what amount the board might entertain a contribution to the dependents. So that's where that particular line goes, potential to 75,000, where it's at about 50 now. So again, room in there to still understand and figure out how the board would like to approach that and how the budget committee would like to see that approached. But that gives you the range of what bookends of what that looks like.
Were you able to survey the employees about which ones they would prefer?
I've been able to get to most of them. I haven't gotten all of them yet, so should be able to.
Is there a trend yet that you can see, or,
In terms of everything that was on the sheet?
yeah, like what they prioritize that you've talked to so far?
The retirement one was a pretty big, important one for most of them. I mean, the health benefit for the most I've talked to so far are, in most cases, they're either single or not a need for dependent coverage.
Okay.
Perhaps, we've got a couple that both spouses work for us, so they're already
Right.
kind of covered that way. Most of the ones that I've talked to so far don't have children
Mhm.
That would
that would qualify. So, so far of who I've talked to, the retirement's been a big one that would be a good, something that they felt would be a good investment for them. I did have at least one say, well, in terms of attracting and retaining others, even though they didn't see the need they don't have dependents that qualify, they still could see the value in trying to attract or keep someone else that might see that as something. So still getting back some of that, and still need to hear back on the health insurance and HSA type options, if there's what they might offer for something like that.
Do we shop around for insurance, or do we kind of?
Haven't, generally have stayed with Maine Municipal Employee Health Trust. But we haven't shopped around in the last few years. I know colleagues ask the question every year on the listserv, and most have come back saying that the Employee Health Trust, Maine Municipal Association, is generally the most competitive in terms, but something that could be entertained if that's the desire.
I've learned the hard way. That if you don't shop around, you can find you made a mistake by not doing it.
Mhm.
It doesn't hurt to shop around,
Nope.
right? If we, well, I mean, we're kind of in a time crunch, so we do have that part of it, but yeah, it doesn't hurt to shop around, so.
Yeah, I know within the health trust, they offer, I think, 5 or 6 different plan options. And the one that Vinalhaven's been in is we only enroll in one, so there's only one option for employees. We can offer up to 3 options, 3 plan options. So that's a possibility there, and just offering a couple different plan options on top of the one that there might be a couple of employees that choose to go with a different one that has a lower premium.
We talked about
on
the
their own.
HSA
Right.
option.
The HSA option, I think, is definitely something that should be investigated, because it is, I know it's a higher premium, but people don't use the benefit because they're healthy. It still helps them by reducing their current taxes, and they can save for medical expenses when they do have it, and also costs the employer less too, so.
Right, and it rolls over.
Exactly.
use it, it rolls
You
over.
still could use it, so.
Right.
All right.
Are there any of these that jump out that you want to dive on the detailed page at all? In the few days you've had, anything that came up?
What's included under manager? Who is covered in this category?
Under the manager column?
Yeah.
Under the manager's column, that's just my proposal. And then the department, in the case where there's a department head filling out the budget request, there'd be my proposal compared to theirs. And the other 2 columns is budget committee and select board. So when it goes to get printed, the community is able to see if there's differences or not between different levels of the government.
There seems fairly significant changes. And I'm not sure what I'm comparing to.
Sure. You want to take a particular line, or?
Oh, the manager the wages. What is?
So wages under the admin. So again, if you're reading manager, that's my recommendation. That's my column, the recommendations for each of those accounts. So we have our admin department. So wages under admin includes our 3 office staff, the clerk, the bookkeeper, the deputy clerk, any of the ballot clerks. Primarily.
What percent are we looking at for increase with this number?
So in the bottom of the column there, See, there's a 16.29% and a 6.02%. Those are increases from last year under each of those proposed columns.
16%, pretty significant.
It is. And again, so,
There may be good reason for it, but it is significant.
right, so the the biggest difference between the manager's request and the department request, again, in the department request column, you see like under, say, insurance, difference between 75,200 in my request, my column, and then 48,000 under the department column. I'll just go to the detailed page. The detailed page, which is just a couple pages in on the same order in your book, or it's on the screen. It shows what we currently cover, that the current premium at 14,000, just over 15,000, and the town contributes 85% of that premium for the employee. And that comes at a cost of just over almost $2,100 or $12,100 per employee. And that covers the employee only. So at 4 employees with that contribution, it'd be $48,000. That's the department's request. And then to compare that with what we were talking about, again, we still have an open position, and you can see the difference in the premiums for those different plan options with different dependent options. As it was presented at the last meeting, the consideration for up to 75% contribution, that just shows you what that premium cost would be to the town. And then the short-term disability for the 4 full-time workers that are benefited under this department, that 4,300. So those are things that were presented at the last meeting. We just wanted to use those 2 columns to kind of show you what the difference is. So the 16% under my column at the end of it, I mean, the difference between, it's almost $30,000 between just on this item alone, depending on the contribution, if there is a contribution or not, for dependent. So it's just an opportunity. There's the, again, a large part of that difference, 16% and 6%. The other ones come with consideration for the retirement. That's another one. Almost a doubling of the retirement as it was proposed. Currently, we provide 6% of the employee's wage or gross wage, and then the proposal was that we go from 6 to 5, but be willing to consider matching up to an additional 5, so the employee would have the potential to earn 10% from us, as long as they put 5% in on their own. Right now, there's no requirement they put anything in. So those 2 columns, as it's presented, is $8,000 difference. I don't know if that explains some of what you were seeing or getting at.
Capture some of it, yes.
Okay. Other questions on this?
What was the dollar wise, not big, but the percentage jump is pretty big in advertising.
Yeah, the advertising we've had, so under its new management, the Wind realized that perhaps, the town wasn't being charged as much as it should have. Like the $250 a month gets us 1 page every week. Sometimes you might notice that we're beyond a page in prior years. I don't think we weren't being charged for those additional columns or ads.
Yeah.
So with a lot of that is the town stuff is usually on that 1 page. If we have job postings, or sometimes it goes beyond that 1 page, but Between that and all the committee activity and being able to share with the community what's going on there, an additional $1,800 is estimated to be able to continue to share that news via the wind. So
Okay.
that's the increase. Pretty modest to help keep that.
Not a big item.
No.
And the salary and wage increases, that's all based on what we approved.
Well, there's the two.
But I mean, if you look at the
Yeah.
increase from last year's budget to this year, it's based on the increase we approved in early February.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Right, so as I presented it in both columns, which I probably should have done it a little bit different. So when we talked last week and I shared the proposed benefit changes for full-time benefited workers, the proposal was to consider increasing the employer's contribution to some of those benefit options in lieu of a COLA increase for next year. And then depending on, or if we're not able to contribute and increase those contributions for those employer provided benefits, then there would potentially be the COLA. So I didn't remember to reflect that in the department line request, but did share what FY22 wages were, and then acknowledging the adjustment made last month, and then what it would be for next year. So there was a good portion of the wage commitment, lines in the departments, based on that $2.50 increase. Which presented a new kind of going in that we'd have to try and find a way to bring that in. So for each employee, it's about 5,000 a year. So there's 3 in here, so there's 15, roughly 15,000 of it there, which is all of what you see in that 116,000 to 132,000. It's largely that.
No, I knew that was gonna go up and if we're gonna be competitive with the rest of the county, we had to do it.
Well, it's, the county, other employers in the county and other employers out here.
I mean, I saw just posting it like Maritime Energies for just a clerk position, it was $16 an hour, so. I mean, if you can't even match that, then why would anyone bother working for us?
That's
So,
right.
And your cop cleaner rock and a has spot
Yeah.
benefit because your pay is so low.
right,
Now, one of the things though that I haven't seen, when you go to retirement, is it based on years of service or it just doesn't matter?
No, the town has contributed to an employee's retirement investment account.
Hmm.
The 457B plan. And the town currently provides 6% of the gross wage. With no match requirement from the employee. The employee can provide and contribute more if they'd like on their own. So that's
There's no fixed benefit, then it's basically a contribution.
right. And so for me, and I was, again, when I was looking at these benefits and, trying to understand and trying to attract and retain people to work for us, is the retirement contribution, to what value of a benefit is that after, say, 20 years of service?
Yep.
Right. And so if I took someone, say, making $16.50 an hour today and figured, hey, maybe they're going to work for us for 20 years. At the end of the 20 years, if they don't contribute anything else to the plan, and it's just based on the 6% the town gives, assuming, say, a 2% COLA each year. The principal investment contribution from the town of 20 years was like 55 to 60 grand. Absent any earnings and however it performs over that same time frame, but started to look at, just to compare it and look at other places, like Maine PERS, like if you're an employer that enrolls in Maine PERS, like some of the schools do and some other towns might do, it's more of like a pension plan where you're gonna base your retirement based on your 3 highest years of earnings, the last 3 or 3 average, 3 highest years, however that works. And it's kind of more of a guaranteed income. You kind of know what you have. And so, and what we do is not different from what a lot of other towns do. Some require a match to put in anything, some don't, and some, like called one town, they don't provide anything for retirement. So it is sometimes all over the place. But I look at it and say, hey, what is the benefit to come in and, what can we provide people that come to work for us? And to your point, the wages are they hopefully fair, but, certainly not competing with the private sector.
So,
I think the adjustment helped though.
Mhm.
So it's a little more competitive.
Absolutely. I thought, the proposal to go from 6 to 5, and so if an employee didn't want to contribute anything, then it would be a decrease in the contribution. But if they were willing to put just the 1% back, they'd actually get, the 6% back from the town. So, and then if coupled with some of those other employer contribution increases on the other benefits, it would afford an employee the opportunity to say, well, maybe I don't take the dollar increase in the check each week, but maybe I say I'm going to invest in my future and say I'll take those savings if the employer increases its contributions and put that into my own retirement and get, so that was a thought in coupling it at the same time.
do they get any choices on how their retirement is to be invested?
They do.
So they can actually see an appreciation if they play
Mhm.
the cards right.
Yeah, and there's usually there's a benefit plan manager that generally with COVID hasn't come out, but will make themselves available and usually checks in once a year, and employees certainly willing to go in and talk with them more frequently and or can manage it themselves once they get their online account set up. It's just in blended, portfolios and
Index fund.
usually a little lower risk. You got enough to think about on that one when I go to the
Yeah.
next one. All right, so for professional services or what was just legal fees, and we've got so many projects going on, we increased and included engineering service fees as well.
Still not.
We've got a lot of projects currently being planned. There's other things that we've talked about. And then, so I don't know if the desire to fund a preliminary engineering report or design for sidewalk and drainage going from, it's largely Clater Hill Road up to the school, or perhaps going back towards the library a little bit further even. If you wanted to start thinking about designing that and addressing the drainage and sidewalk deficiencies there, or hold off, but I propose that be considered. If we can't get it done this spring, to still be able to consult with a pavement preservation and kind of come up with a pavement preservation plan for the roads. Something that might consider, where the rehab needs to happen, where we talked again last year about the need to kind of have someone come in and work with us on that. And then I think to find a way to consider future options for keeping the surface in good condition. Instead of just putting an asphalt down, waiting 10 years and just doing it again, how can we slide and push that timeline out for those reconstructions? You can keep water from entering the surface and getting into the base. You're gonna have a lot better road a lot longer. So there are a few options you can have. I mean, short, skinnier overlays, like what the state will do on its maintenance plan for its roads, like what they did a couple years ago. They came out and put a 5/8 inch layer, 7/8 inch layer down. It was supposed to be just enough to keep that a nice coat on the surface so water's not penetrating it. If you've got cracking and deficiencies and you put that on there, you're going to see the cracks within a year, like we are in some of those roads. And so keeping that surface in a good condition so you can do things like that are lower expense, or the consideration of something like a chip seal. That's been working in other communities with the technology and the change and what that looks like. I've gone with a couple on a couple of roads elsewhere with someone from that Allstate Material Group. They had presented at some of our workshops and had them come out here and do a presentation with Public Works and the board at one point, like a daytime thing you could join. And they should explain the difference in how the technology's changed over the last 20 years, and to know that we've had chip seal applied out here before, and a lot of people remember it. And I said, well, how's it changed? I mean, a lot of towns have the same reaction. That was 30 years ago. Technology changes in 30 years, and they've done a lot to have a better product to help hold a different tack or emulsion, they call it, to help hold the product, and so it's not nearly as bad. And it does take a couple days to cure, but once it does cure, it's a little bit of a rougher surface at first, but after your first, the plows feel it in the first year, but after you knock that, cut that surface or that edge, it wears and rides like almost a normal road. The towns that have done it, I know have talked about that rougher surface in the wintertime means you don't have a slick road. And I don't know if anyone noticed what the roads on the ones that were repaved last winter looked like when it came winter. They were a lot slicker because it was a newer, smoother surface. And so that was just kind of an aside that they saw as a benefit when it came to wintertime, is that treatment provides a little bit more texture. So it's not as slick. Not a reason to do it in of itself, but just as something that they saw when you add up all the negatives. Sometimes there's also positives. But I think having someone be able to work with the town on what can we do? What are our options? Do we just want to continue, every 10 to 12 years slapping down an inch or two of hot mix and calling it good? That was a proposal and a thought to consider.
If that's applied, can it go over, what's preparation for what the surface that it's gonna cover? Is there a lot of preparation?
Not if the surface is in good condition. I mean, if and generally what they'll recommend, and you got some roads generally that, you can't put it down until you put a new potential base or surface down. And so you do have to have a good wearing surface, but if you've paved and you got a good base and you've paved, they, I think, generally aim for like years like 4 through 5 maybe to come back with a layer, and then you come back in again in 3 or 4 years, add another layer of that down, and just keep the water from penetrating into the base of the road. It's kind of like for those that have paved driveways, you're gonna seal those every so often, to help, same thing, keep water from getting into it largely, and it's same concept, but at $250,000 a mile to pave out here, I think it's really important to find a cheaper way to maintain that surface without coming out every 10 years to.
Was there a
on.
quote on how much that was?
I don't know. I didn't get one. We still got obviously the logistics of getting all the material out here. It's not as time sensitive, which is a nice thing. With the hot mix, you've got to put it down or you lose the
Right.
quality. And that was the other thing is, the difference between a hot mix solution and a cold mix solution for paving. The hot mix, again, you need a certain temperature or you've lost the benefit of having hot mix. And so the cold mix, you can actually prep and stockpile that, and you've got more time before you need to put it down. And it's a little more flexible. So if you do have bad drainage or water under your roads, it's not going to be as brittle. It's a little more forgiving.
So it could be an alternative for certain parts, certain roads, certain
Right.
parts of portions of roads,
Right.
but like smaller roads, side roads and stuff, it might be
Less traveled, yeah. Yes.
something to think about.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
East Main Street's already cracking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was part of that thin overlay the state did on the state aid road. And that's, if you're in a preventative maintenance program and timeline, like it could work. But when you go 15 years in between and the cracks are there, they admittedly, they're gonna show. You'll get it maybe a year out of it before they come back through.
We're gonna have to come up with a name because we had Charlie Chip Seal before, remember? I don't know, we're gonna have to go to Andy Asphalt.
So the proposal, the summary of the department, but of the professional services, legal fees. You can see in the last couple of years, it's kind of depends what's going on. It was $20,000, almost $21,000 spent in FY20. Last year, $35,000 spent in legal fees. And then this year, through December, we were already at $15,000. and we budgeted for 18. Some of this we can't anticipate, we do still have the case with Hurricane Island outstanding. We did close the land use
Forgot about
violation.
that.
We did close the land use violation. That was a big time commitment and cost there, which will eventually see some of those funds come back.
Yeah, we hope.
Well, eventually.
We hope.
Eventually. So, with that Hurricane Island one still out there, there's a couple different fronts that one's still hanging out. I mean, one with the Superior Court, one at the state, one of the state boards. And I think everyone involved would like to have seen this still, finalized already by now, but not knowing, not a major increase, but in the proposal, but to have $20,000 available for that, generally for legal fees.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the engineering it was 51,500 last year, and the proposal to lower that just a little bit to 50,000. And provide a summary here of some of the things I was thinking of under the engineering
So we spent nothing on engineering
through December.
through December.
That's correct. Since then, we have had a couple bills
Okay.
come in for the, we just did High Street and the garage, or the Public Works building, or not
Yeah.
Public Works, the Public Safety building design. Those two bills have finally come in.
Okay.
Most of those work orders were signed late summer or fall, so just took a little
I
while.
just
for them to-
signed a check for one of them.
All right.
So the carrying some in there for just general consultation, whether it's on grants or, hey, there's a grant funding, coming up, can they help us put something together? And they've done that. I think they do that for the harbor improvement plan. I think they've done that for us. The ship grant they're working on is part of the downtown project, but if other grant funds kind of come available and we want to go after them, having the ability to work with engineers on preparing some of that, I feel is important if we're gonna take advantage of it.
Right.
So a $5,000 kind of contingency for general consultation. And then the consideration of those other two plans as mentioned, those are my guesses. I mean, the East Main Street drainage, I just kind of basing that based on the High Street quote we got. I think it's a little bit lower than what that was for, but a little bit shorter, easier project, I believe. And then the pavement preservation plan, again, kind of a complete guess, and it depends on the scope and the length, the amount of roads we want to have them look at. But with over 30 miles of road that we maintain and about half of those being paved, I mean, it could be a lot of them needing a lot of work underneath. That was an amount that I put in that hopefully it would cover it.
And we have 70K in the fund balance already.
For
Under professional services, that's what I'm seeing here.
on the summary, the proposal that we use $70,000 from fund balance to offset
Gotcha.
all of these costs, where they're, if we don't spend the legal fees, it goes back to the fund balance anyways. And we've had years where it hasn't.
Yeah.
We did have the year where the previous case had paid its debt to us. That was like a $90,000 debt that was due, and that came in 2 years ago.
17.
And so for this account and for these engineering studies, like they're kind of one-off things. So my proposal was that we use the fund balance just to offset these. Next year there might not be hardly anything to spend
Okay.
for the following year. So where the fund balance is in a healthy position, that's how we've done it in the past, is use this to offset it generally, unless we have grant funds coming in,
Okay.
which we can still see. But if it goes unspent, it just returns to the fund balance. That was
Okay.
my thought on that. You see, last year we had used $58,000 of fund, for this year, $58,000 for fund balance to cover these.
Yep.
And in the previous 2 years, $40,000 each. Of course, the budgeted amounts were only $40,000. And last year, 11,500 from taxes for this year. Sorry, 11,500 from taxation for this year's budget that we're in now.
My initial thought would maybe be to hold off on the East Main Street sidewalk drainage study, at least, maybe, and maybe we take it. I don't know, but
Yeah, I was thinking, we've got a lot of projects going on, and so the companies and equipment will be out here. And so I didn't know if we wanted to be ready for, hey, the design's done, we know what we need to do. And if funds or the price was lower because companies were here and at the tail end of that project you wanted it, and it doesn't mean you have to commit to doing it. But if you have the plan, the design that, to be able to have a company take advantage of them already being here potentially, or the right grant coming along, you're just more ready to do it. I mean, some of what we're being held up on some of the stuff now is like, we just didn't have all the plans ready. So that takes a while to get all that stuff done. So I just saw there's an opportunity with all the work happening at the end of that. If you wanted to, say in 2 years, say, hey, before you leave, let's put this bid out and maybe that'll be a better price for us because you're already here.
How far up where does the project actually end in regards to the sidewalk? Will it go up Nut Factory or will it end at
Like the electric company,
FIC?
Great question. I can't off the top of my head remember if it goes to the top of that hill or not.
I can't either.
If we go to the top of that hill, I don't know that we're addressing all of those drainage concerns. Some of that will depend on additional funding if we get it.
Because it would seem to me while we're right there, it would be only smart to get the hill done.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, if we can get the intersection up above where Chestnut is, and I think that
at
would,
least go to Chestnut.
yeah,
because the drainage, how you would tackle the drainage up there. So I think like some of that, might depend on whether, all the funding that comes in. I think for EDA, I didn't think it went up to the top there, but I can confirm. And that was one thing that I mentioned to the engineer yesterday, to Brent, was it'd be great to have a visual, like a map, color coded to say this funder is covering this project, this funder's got this project, and here are the areas that.
yeah, that's a
So
good idea.
they are planning to do that. Just haven't got to it yet, but that would be really helpful. I know for me in talking with the different funders to make sure we're not overlapping and talking about the wrong projects, but to help us visualize now that things are coming together,
Right.
what's being done.
Going back to East Main Street though, I think you almost have a legal issue that you need to take in consideration. That hill in front of my house, that sidewalk, all you need is one person to fall on that sidewalk. And Pam, you know what kind of condition that's in.
You'll see me struggling to get up over that hill
And
occasionally.
someone with a kid or something, and stroller comes
Yes.
along, someone falls on that road, that's gonna be a lawsuit. So I'm suggesting rather than, we ought to look at where the problem areas are on Main Street, and at least address the problem areas, because that sidewalk is caving in, and someone's gonna get hurt.
Well, we have a lot of those, Dawn, that's for
I
sure.
understand, but I'm saying those are the issues though, that are, rather than doing the whole kit and caboodle, you might want to focus on where there are legal issues, or potential legal issues.
Well, because they're they're in pretty good shape to the bottom of Black's Hill anyway.
Bottom, that, on the other
That's
side, you're
not too
right.
bad, but
But-
Crockett's does need work.
Yep.
I agree. But anyway, in the meantime, and so we'll be able to see in the plan if they get it all.
They will event. I don't know if the timeline on that to get that done is, but we were on the same page of wanting to see that put
Yeah,
together.
good. That'd be kind of cool.
So this design for the East Main Street sidewalk, the drainage, we say on the top of like Net Factory Hill to the school, is that what we're talking about?
I
That
think-
whole stretch or just?
So there was a Safe Routes to School grant, and the town was able to do the sidewalk from was it Brighton Ave to Clater Hill
Yep,
Okay,
2 years ago.
Yeah,
So from
that's all
Brighton
done.
Ave back to Main Street, and then from Clater Hill to the school are sections that need to be.
actually, it's from Pleasant Street to,
Okay, but it's Brighton, it didn't have it right there, did it?
no,
Say
between
Pleasant Street
Brighton
to,
and
like,
Pleasant.
It's
it's
like
not.
to, it might only go as far as Cottage.
it
No,
goes
that's
up-
new.
It goes
It
to the top
does,
of the hill.
Yeah,
That's right, it doesn't go in between the other two.
yeah. So.
I think that's all in 2009, spring of 2009 is when they did that project.
Yeah, because there's that newer retaining wall. I
Yeah.
assume
Yeah,
it's
that's
newer,
still
all the
good.
way up to Pleasant.
Yeah,
Because it was part of the stimulus package passed in 2008, 2009.
so it would go from Pleasant all the way back to Main Street.
And presumably finish going to the school. So
Right.
If Dawn points out, just beyond that section you're talking, there is still other
Yep.
efficiencies
right.
beyond that. And so that's where I guess just suggesting that we, put an amount in there to be able to try and at least get this part of it planned. Once they get High Street design done, once they get these other designs done, have them that design, and then more find a grant potentially, or pull the trigger on it again. And if you don't do it this year, next year, you could wait a couple of years, but haven't they? We're still referencing the drainage study from 2007, I think it is. Because that was put together back then and then never acted on. And so most of the solutions identified there, some still stand. Some of them didn't take into account increased flood concerns that we're considering today, but a lot of that is still similar. So it's, when you have that level of plan, you can kind of, you're a little further ahead, I guess, when the opportunities funding.
Yeah, it can't hurt. I mean, like you said, if the equipment's out here already, if we have everything in place, we just have to give it a kit.
Mhm.
Can't hurt to have it.
And on that detail page there, I didn't propose that we fund it. I didn't propose funding it, but, did have on there, it was a conversation we've had for the last few years about the flood map, challenges. I still haven't heard back with any clear indication that FEMA's gonna reconsider it, as part of that county request for funds. It did get kicked up to above the state FEMA flood management folks and did go to the federal level, but I haven't heard that they're gonna take that on and readdress it on their own accord until the next revisions, which could be a while. But they still are, last I knew, talking about that. Did bring up, the fact that there was an error in the Penobscot Bay
Yeah,
calculations they found in Rockland, they did Rockland.
yeah, so just those last maps, it's ridiculous.
Is that the 26 feet we have in the floodplain,
Yeah.
which is asinine?
It's ridiculous.
Completely asinine.
It's ridiculous.
Right. So they gave us there was a company that primarily has been involved in Maine in challenging some of these, and they worked with Rockland when the preliminaries came out, and that's a large reason why Knox County was delayed another year, was because of what they were working on for Rockland and others. And they've been working in southern Maine too for a couple communities to challenge those, and we've had a property owner out here use them to challenge their properties designation to some mild success. And so they knew what they're getting into. They've got the data to back it up already, and so we had asked them for kind of a price to do an island-wide review, and they came back with upwards of $100,000 potentially, not knowing how much time really would, and it would depend on how much we want as a community wanted to have them go. If we wanted to identify certain areas only, it would be smaller, obviously, but if we wanted a full island-wide review, and acknowledging that they can't guarantee any outcome, some areas might increase, some areas might decrease.
Didn't Stonington go through that?
They
And they get
did,
a huge reduction, if I recall correctly.
yeah, I don't remember if it was whole island or if it was just, certain parts of the coastline but yes, they did do, and they looked at property values and the concern for the reduction in assessment in the future to justify using tax funded initiative. And that's what the boards in the budget committee have talked about the last few years. Is this something that the tax base is going to pay for, the island-wide review and challenge, or is this something that we focus more on areas the town owns the property, or how do we talk about who funds what part of it?
Well, certainly you're destroying a lot of property value when people can't get bank loans to do things to that property.
Right, you have a piece of property, but you can't sell it because, the other party can't, like you said, can't get the loan because they can't pay the flood insurance.
There's some areas, quite a few areas, that flood zones are still going to exist, but the difference between a B and an A zone
Right,
is substantial in the cost, and some buildings might be removed, but some properties are probably still going to be, quite a few are still going to be in it. Challenging the program entirely is not quite what the reviews are for, but the math, the analysis we can challenge.
I lived on St. Simon now, 13.5 feet above flood level, and my flood insurance went down to $450 a year from about $1,500
Yeah.
because they challenged.
yeah. All right.
So that's not included in what I've put forward, but just want to put that up there as it's been a big discussion the last few years. Margaret, you're off mute. Did you have a? anything else on that one?
I was just gonna say that also doesn't include the outer islands. As we've discussed every time we discuss this budget.
Well, we're all in agreement that the maps are crazy, so.
But
something-
what do you do about it?
Well, nothing we can except try to get some money set aside
Do
to,
we want to vote on this particular portion of the budget?
yeah, I'm good.
Does anyone
Well, if you are.
have any more questions?
We can revisit later. if The rest of it comes in.
It's true. Well,
Doing well, just, browsing once, but if someone wants to vote, then let's vote.
All righty.
All right.
Vote early and vote often. If someone doesn't vote.
well, I make a motion, we approve the professional services budget at 70,000 as proposed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Insurance is next. The good news is
What color is that tab?
I have
orange.
Oh, there it is.
So that, barring any workplace injuries, that workers' comp line is one that's continued to slowly decrease in the last couple of years after kind of hit a pretty big peak. So I mean, that's been our biggest, I guess, unknown is what that amount will come in at following what we had faced there a few years ago. But it has been coming down. So this is down 22,618 last year. And as far as best I can tell, that should be, and it might not be all of the 86,877 that's listed there, but I think the last couple of years, the workers' comp has come in a little bit less than I estimated, but only takes one.
So through December, we're only at 32,000.
That's correct. Yeah, there's usually two, October, July and January are the two big ones, I think, for workers' comp. I remember right.
Do we have an update? Since we're through January now.
There we go. So, if we paid it, I can get it. I just don't have it in front of me
Okay, that's
to
fine.
provide. Right
I'm just
now.
wondering if,
These numbers were reflected again through December, so it was a 6-month snapshot.
say if we just spent that again, we're at 64, is there any way we could lower it below the 86?
Right. So January and April are the two on the detailed page for the workers' comp are on the screen. January and April workers' comp amounts are the biggest ones.
Okay. We haven't had the biggest ones yet.
Probably the January one's been paid. I don't know. It wouldn't be included in this yet, what I prepared, but I can find that out and.
I'm just wondering, like, yeah, could we cut it down to maybe 75 or 70?
Right. And then on the summary originally on that first page there for the goals and the kind of overview of what we'd like to do, I mean, still. Love to see us enroll in the SHAPE program. The state of Maine has, the Bureau of Labor has a SHAPE program, and so that's the voluntary compliance to improve, and then they come and do an audit. And then you kind of get, it's like a 2-year kind of, I mean, if you have an injury, workplace injury, they got to come and do something, but you kind of get like a 2-year grace period if you can prove them that, hey, we meet all these things, whereas otherwise you're subject to the, surprise visit. Most of the time you're on a surprise by the time of the year, but
Right.
you know, you kind of get, you can prove to them that, hey, we meet all of the expectations you have for us as an employer, and show them that we can do that. Now I'm hopeful, that's something I had talked to Millie about, and with her background, I think that that's something that we can get us into finally.
Okay.
We've talked about it for the last couple of years, and just haven't had a chance to get it done. It is not a light process to go through. It's pretty involved to get programs and policies in place and training done. But I think for someone like her with her background, I think it'll be relatively
Be an easier
Something
lift than in the past.
a little less painful.
Oh, that's just so- oh.
And then hopefully, yeah, we do limit and further reduce and lower our risk of injury on the job with her expertise. Any other concerns or challenges with? You know, this is one that if we go back through, we can consider, you know, a fund balance allocation perhaps, where it's not, you know, raising that money, where there's a little bit of uncertainty on that workers' comp payment. Like if you're looking at 86, it's a little over 86, that almost $87,000, you know, we could look at, hey, you know, we could see it potentially go down by as much as 15 grand. And we could consider doing that from fund balance. Because you're still gonna have a base of insurance costs, you know, even once it hits its lowest point, it's going to.
Yeah.
And, you know, funding that through, not through fund balance, I think is important, because that's a cost we're gonna have every year. But until that continues to hit the bottom, it just, yeah, how far will it go down? So I mean, you can see this current year, we utilized 19,000 in fund balance to offset the commitment for that. The airport coverage is something that we locked in 3 years at that $2017 year.
3 years
Policy.
starting last year,
This year.
this year.
I think the check actually for that one is either in here or went out last week.
Okay.
That was a slight increase that I think we were paying 1775 for that. So that did go up a little bit, $20 a year.
What do we insure?
So we insure the property generally under our general property casualty policy, under that first line there. This coverage insures us for the operation, using the property as an airport. Now, it's a low premium because we don't have facilities, we don't have buildings, we don't have fuel, we don't store any planes there. So it's about as low of a policy as we can get. And this is shopped around through J. Edward Knight. There's not many quotes that come back. There's a few companies doing it, providing it. But yeah, that's something that came to our attention a few years ago. And because we operate that as a active runway with flights in and out, you know, we weren't being covered for that activity. Now the company flying in and out has their own insurance, but us as the airport didn't have the coverage. And so that was,
I guess what kind of, you know, just curious, what are we insuring against?
sure. So I mean, I mean, I can only guess, but if someone were to be an accident, say, right, and there was an issue with the condition of the property that may have caused it, or just, I mean, this is how it's been brought to my attention anyways, that activity of the flights and the landing and taking off is something that just isn't covered currently under our policy. And when there's an accident or injury, of course, you know, you sometimes brought, you know, wide nets are cast to find fault and pay out.
It's a pretty insignificant amount to begin with, but just curious.
Yeah. I could share that coverage if you'd like, just to, might to you be a little easier to see what the.
Is it, so that, the 2017, that's per year for the next 3? Okay.
Good.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have anything.
Should we move on to the next one then?
Mhm.
The Social Security, Medicare.
Sorry, just the next one, if you can just update on the, wherever the workers' comp was we paid in January.
Sure.
Just have an idea, and then maybe we can bring that number down a little bit.
Did you just say social security and Medicare?
Yes. These are based on the proposed wages and positions as presented in the budget, including the ones that I haven't fully printed, put forward yet. Transfer station, Public Works Department, largely. You see the social security tax, 6.2, but our portion 6.2%, and for the Medicare is like 1.3, 1.45%. The last 2 years, it was pretty close, 57,000, 56,000. The increase in wages, that's what brought it up a little bit this year. Proposed for next year. So.
This is based on if we were fully staffed, is that correct? Maybe someday. It is what it is.
Yeah, plug these numbers and multiply it by this, yeah.
All right, licensed septic site, again, that price has stayed at 2,300 for quite some time. And someone did raise that question of, where do they take our, this is the cost, this is the fee to have our waste go somewhere else. In some way. And so that is a good question that someone had asked about, where does it go? And is there a concern for being able to dispose of there? Some disposal sites are just being closed, proposed to be closed. So that would be it is a pretty significant issue for those that are facing that. And I'm hoping we're not in danger of that.
How come we don't just put it into a municipal system there?
This is the solids that come out of the municipal
Yeah.
system, and then it gets trucked to go somewhere, and this is the fee to be able to dispose of it elsewhere.
It's better on the field.
Yeah, well, that's what the issue is.
Lot of
Places that
times,
have
yeah.
been, they're being proposed to stop, because the PFAs. And that's, I don't know if ours, I haven't asked, I don't know if ours.
Ours should be PFA free, I would think, pretty much.
Well,
They're everywhere.
the thing
You have
is,
to get away from.
it's forever. It's a forever
Exactly. Yeah,
pollutant.
right.
So,
Yeah, but normally, much of it comes from industrial operations, which we don't have over here.
Mm.
True.
I don't know what the tests are. They test for it over at the sewer plant. Do you? I mean,
Oh,
is
right
that-
now?
Yeah,
Oh, we test
I mean,
mostly
I
the
know
water quality.
the water quality.
Yeah, I
but-
don't know that we run any samples on the solids.
Yeah, I
It's
don't,
just
That's
the
what
water.
Of course, we pick it up from, is in the groundwater.
yeah, anyway. I don't know where it goes either, Andy.
Yeah. I should find out.
Yeah, we should. No.
Obviously, I have mine.
How are your tomatoes tasting?
All right, general assistance, again, this is one that state mandated program, we funded it at 3,000 a year. It's also one that, if in a given year we've had to expend $10,000, even though we only budgeted $3,000, but it's one of the few places that towns are by statute allowed to overexpend, because it's a state mandated program. So, and we do get reimbursed from the state for qualified expenses that meet the program. So they usually reimburse, I would say it's upwards of 60 or 70%. But you can see we
We've
haven't
had nothing the last
we
2
haven't
years.
spent much from that. It's an income-based qualifying program. There are situations that qualify under emergency statuses, regardless of your income, but
So if it's not spent, it stays in fund balance that we can then use it.
Yep.
Okay.
this is one that we generally have just paid for from the fund balance, because some years, most years, some of it goes back in, so it's a low amount.
Well, I move that we approve the general assistance budget of $3,000.
So moved.
Seconded, all those in favor? All right. A couple.
I think the last one here is donations for tonight that we proposed.
Yeah.
I did have another one that came, but I didn't. Put them all in one place and then I overlooked this additional one. So you can see on here, some of the same ones that we've had in the past, the Penquist cap, the surplus food, which is local surplus food, the Lifelight Foundation, New Hope for Women, and Waldo Community Action Program. They primarily provide the transportation services like that come right to the fair. I think it's that Dash bus service I don't know if that still comes to the ferry boat or not.
Do they still, yeah,
That's
they
Waldo
have,
County.
Yeah, it's through that cap that provides that transportation service.
Okay.
I was surprised too when I was like. And then this other one that I have here was the Sexual Assault Support Services of Mid-Coast Maine. And their request was for the Maine crime stats show that 1 in 5 Mainers experience sexual violence, and that they're asking for that same ratio be applied in considering our donations, so that of the 1,165 people that the 2010 census had us at 233 residents, and $2 per person. So they're asking for $466 to support their organization.
which one is that?
This is
That's
one
a new
that
one.
I didn't have on there. I didn't
Oh,
pick
okay.
up on it until today, the Sexual Assault Support Services of Mid-Coast Maine.
So if we added that 430.66, sorry, it'd be
466
just
would
over
be-
3,000.
Session.
Assassin.
Session. SASSMM.
Okay.
What I've done in the 2 columns, it's a minor amount of money, but
466.
the 2 columns, you'll see the manager and the department. The difference there is the organizations that we have funded or requested funds rather are included. And then on the other one includes ones that I know would like it, but we didn't get an official request for. Like I know we had Eric had raised last year the MLA legal fund in light of the work against the whale regulations. And that was one that we didn't get an official solicitation for, but he had asked on their behalf. And that was something that was funded. WCAP asked for $51 in their letter, and we provided 500. We'll provide 500 this year, but for next year's budget, I rounded it to 100. Don't know how many people from here use the bus service per se, but hopefully it gets used.
Budget.
The main pub, is that main public?
It's quite a,
Main Public
that
Radio,
is it?
Emmy
Okay.
Pub, yeah. They
Too
did
bad
so
that we need those
provide
types
of
requests for
organizations.
$100.
it's interesting.
I can,
Leslie, do you want to see this?
Sure.
I didn't scan this year yet, but I can scan all those ones that I do have that came in and send them along just so you can see what
Mhm.
their letters were.
So there's been nothing requested from the top 3.
Yeah, some of those are
Fourth of
just kind of
July.
on the books and so they show up on there, but the Memorial Day one was one that we actually shifted to, those were expenses for like the flags and the flowers and stuff.
Okay.
So we actually just include that in the cemetery budget now instead of a
Okay.
donation. We buy it, the Legion usually puts them out. 4th of July at one point.
Yeah, I
That
would
was
say
a
just
committee
if
request.
we've moved these or we're no longer getting requests, let's just remove them going forward.
Is that 4th of July when the
I think,
fireworks?
I think it was before the committee formed and we,
No,
I
it's
think there was something.
fireworks
yeah.
committee, right?
So that falls underneath the capital projects reserve funds because we have the reserve for it now.
Mhm.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the donations budget at $3,100.
So moved.
All those in favor? And the surplus of what? $34 you can just send to the SASSMM.
Sass.
Yeah.
which I think is a good thing too.
Yes.
Right, so that's good. We have New Hope for Women and that other one. Not saying it's just always women, but certainly.
So there wouldn't be a
Time, I'm sure.
surplus.
If you add the 466 to the 2,600, that would be
Oh, okay.
3,066.
So
If
the-
we approve 3,100, there's another $34. I'm
Okay.
saying you put the $34 to the
Right, so the,
SASSMM request.
under the department column, like we didn't get a Penquist cap request that I saw in my box. So like under the department request, you'll see there's $0 for Penquist, but I put 500 in there because they have generally submitted something.
Yeah.
So there are two different lines. So the 3151 includes the MLA legal fund. That I didn't get an official request for, but I don't know if that's something that you want to consider again.
All right, then I would, then let me withdraw my motion.
So if you wanted to add the
Let me withdraw my
466 and consider the 466, that would be 3617. I don't know if you. wanna-
36.7.
17.
So why don't we just round? I like round numbers.
Yeah,
Let's do
so-
3,700. All right.
3,700?
Yes, I would propose that the donation budget be approved for $3,700.
All
You
right.
could have done
Alright.
3620.
Oh, my God.
You would have saved $80.
30.
Motion has been
36.
made.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
There we go. All right.
20 is a round number. Don't
I
have to
agree,
go to the
though.
nearest hundred.
Yes, you do. You have to go to the nearest 100.
That's hard to think of $17. Yeah.
Round it to 20.
Yeah,
50 even.
all righty.
Cheap, cheap, cheap.
Huh?
That concludes the budget items that we had talked about
That's
covering.
good, that's good for one night.
Gosh, we're doing good.
And I would recommend at our, next week, we have a budget workshop, an hour and a half cap, a lot of times we set like a, hard stop
That's
time.
fine.
After an hour and a half, my eyes start to go a little
Brain is
cross-eyed.
That's fine.
Yeah,
Well, and hopefully it's a little more helpful now that I do have a
Yeah.
portion of
Yeah,
it
oh,
done,
yeah,
so that
no.
should be.
Eric's
Oh,
book.
thank God, thank God.
Don't forget to take it with.
Oh, we have to take these with
You
us?
don't have to.
No, I leave it right, it's right
Eric's has
here.
never left the building.
No.
Really?
Well,
This
except
is,
for,
this is my
Feel
chair.
free to come in and.
Except for
and
town
chat.
meeting.
Feel free to find a
That
time to
wasn't
come in
your
and
book,
chat if you
Eric.
still wanna
No,
come.
I know,
Yeah.
my book is.
Probably
my-
in your
I think
truck.
It's in my
Oh,
office.
Oh.
Town needs to really rock.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
thank
Good night.
you.
There is
Yeah.
a big one. It's not a little,
This little stuff
doesn't
Um,
Take a day.
So we have to continue our meeting.
We only have
See you later.
a
Thanks,
couple
Don.
of things.
Thanks,
Bye,
Don.
Hey,
Dawn.
Don.
Thank you.
All right. Move on to 10, Board of Town Manager.
Some of the stuff we've already covered. One thing that we're trying to understand a little bit better right now and is the net factory site in regards to the downtown project and use during the project. We've been talking with the water district about, possible options for, what their portion of the building and their use of the properties looks like. Just keep it as general as that. The deed does show the town and the water district as tenants in common. I knew it was an undivided interest, and I remember seeing a survey that kind of had a line as it was drawn through the property where the walls are shared. So I've always assumed like it was kind of like assumed that one entity owned this half, one entity owned this half, and we're in there tenants as common. So right now we're trying to understand what exactly what that means in terms of, I assume we both sign off equally on whatever decisions there are going forward, once the town approves anything. But just trying to understand all those different options and scenarios as we look for ways to work with the water district and move forward on things. So that's happening. Midcoast Council of Government, spent a little bit of time with them, working with on a small hiring committee to try and find their next executive director. They did make a proposal or an offer to someone, or trying to make an offer to someone rather. And that's something that they might be wrapping up. And so we've utilized theirs. We're a member of them. If you remember through the county taxes, county pays the dues for all of the Knox County towns to be members there, and we've utilized them for the 2 big grants we've gotten, and have a contract with them for I think the Northern Borders one, and they're going to be involved in the EDA grant admin follow-up reporting stuff to some degree too. So some of those funds kind of have to funnel through that regional body, and there's other things they can help provide services for if fully staffed, like potential for ordinance reviews and suggestions. They've looked at it before, just in terms of compliance with state statute and regulations. We've got those edits. You know, they haven't been in a position to be able to come in and like work with our housing committee or planning commission to the degree that they're requesting. They've done training for us before for some of our boards. So I mean that we've been able to utilize some of that. So I think this is something that hopefully with the right person filling the role, that we'll hopefully see a few more services offered out of that group. They've been kind of in a hold pattern for over a year now, looking for a director. Mentioned Millie's officially started this pay period with Director of Public Works position. She's hit the ground running on that. Sent me an update today on things that happened today, and we've had the company that installed the furnaces in the new garage. They've been out, this is the 3rd trip out here in the last 2 weeks to try and remedy that solution because that hasn't been running.
Oh, good.
And I mentioned it to Brent and Megan, the engineers, and said, you know, we haven't, you know, one of them didn't fire up after like November, and the other one kind of slugged along and finally isn't running, and that was in late December, January. And so I finally said something to him middle of last month. I said, you know, we've got Jimmy and Earl looking at it. I said, you know, there's something going on here. Air's in the line somehow. I don't know why. And so that's when I reached back out to the engineer and said, is there something like, I think there's an issue with how it was actually installed, like workmanship. And so we called, I said, give me half an hour. Within 20 minutes, I had the company that oversaw the whole project and the company that installed it calling us. And said,
Oh, good.
We'll be out. So
They're doing it at their expense, right? That's what's this year.
yeah, you know, with the exception of possibly the ferry trip, the ferry costs.
I don't see why that should be our cost.
Well, it's not that it has to be, it's just we didn't figure out, 'cause when we put a request in for a priority, they just, the ferry service bills us, so we haven't talked to them about, by the way, you know.
Yeah.
I said, let's get it fixed
Everything
first.
should be on there.
Yeah, get it fixed
Let's
and
get
then
it fixed. then
Get it
we can
fixed, and then
discuss
we'll
that.
be- Yeah,
deal
but
with the
I
details.
still don't see why that's our problem.
Right.
They didn't do it right.
It should be
They
under
should fix
warranty.
it.
They should have
Yeah.
to pay for everything.
It has to be. It was completed,
3 months, 4 months.
yeah, not even 6 months ago.
I said, you know, we would have called sooner, but you know, in August and September and October, we didn't.
You don't
even
know.
run
They
it,
don't
so-
use the
Right.
furnace.
Exactly.
I will say that the investment in the insulation in that structure, you know, making that investment in the insulation was huge because we said earlier, pretty cold this morning, but
Yeah.
you know, I've been up there a couple weeks ago when it got real cold, and I remember looking at the thermostat and you could tell it was cool, but it was still like hovering around 40 in the general garage space. And the office and the break room have heat pumps in them, so those spaces are fine. So it was, you know, single digits and still holding pretty well. I'd say that was a good investment in that insulation to make that
Mhm.
happen. So the Western Star left today. We had to have a second tow truck come out to attempt to take that off, and this one was successful, so. That is now over at a garage, and the insurance company will send someone to take a look at it now that it's over there. Figure out next steps for that. The other truck did hear today, they're still waiting for one more report to come from the appraiser that looked at it, but right now, it doesn't look like the insurance company is saying that they're gonna cover it, because the appraiser says this is under normal wear and tear, that this wasn't, you know, the impact that you're describing didn't, no way that it caused the frame to break, that, you know, the frame, you know, the truck, they're basically saying that in their opinion, the appraiser's opinion, the truck was overloaded. And that was the kind of straw that broke the camel's back, but they're saying there was no way in their opinion that what we described happened caused that frame to break.
This is the insurance adjuster.
This is the company that was, yeah, the appraiser that kind of came out to look at it.
Well,
So I'm trying to
Don't
understand,
take their word for anything.
trying to understand now what the process is with the insurance company to potentially challenge that, or what our options are. And in the meantime, we're without a small dump truck and it's about to be mud season, which means we can't put the other 2 dump trucks down those roads usually at that time of year. So we do have to kind of figure figure out what the solution will be for fixing roads without a small dump truck, other than hiring out,
Yeah.
locally to truck stuff for us, so,
Right.
which isn't, something that we've been trying to do this winter anyways. Wow, some of those roads, so.
Might be time to look at a different insurance company.
Well, yeah, I think understanding the process for, and I mean, I certainly got a big question. I mean, there probably aren't too many towns that don't have a 550 in its fleet with a plow and wing on it. So I'm just trying to understand still what that.
How did we
Yeah,
overload
we-
it? I don't understand how we overloaded
The
it.
company that rigged it up said this is one of the most common trucks so I mean, I think there's still a process to try and figure out how this will play out.
Are they trying to save too much dirt in it?
No, so the way that it was explained to me when that adjuster came out, he was saying that these trucks, you can put these wings, plows and wings on these trucks, but when you put a wing on this type of frame, it's a light duty dump truck, and you put this plow and wing on there and you go winging, that front end of that truck has a hard time handling that impact of that wing and the plow. And that's what, in their experience, we see this from time to time, and it's the smallest accident that wrecks these frames on these types of trucks. And I don't know if it was a bad year or if what it was, but the crack or the break in the frame, he said, there's no way that little impact caused it to break. He says years of the way it was used and what was rigged up on it, in his opinion, is what caused that to finally fail.
So then why do all the other towns do the same thing?
That's right, and that's so if we hit a big enough tree or crashed in the right place, it broke, that would have been probably covered.
Would have been
But
okay.
because it was a very minor incident, that's
Wow.
one of my biggest questions. Like, well, how's this work? And the company again that installed it said it's one of the more common trucks we install these on.
So then if they're gonna say it's not insurable, then we should go back to the company that installed it and say you installed it wrong.
Well, we spec'd it. We told them what we wanted on there, but we put it out to bid, and that was the company that we got the low bid to put it on.
I wonder if other towns that have the same setup have had to deal with this. Oh, it's your fault that the frame broke
Right.
deal.
I mean, it's not an old, I mean, it's 2015, in that part where it broke, I mean, I don't remember noticing any significant rust deterioration there. So, I mean, it's not like it was a 20-year-old truck that was flaking, the frame was flaking, and, So again, lots still to understand on that, but we'll be trying to do our best to push forward on that. In the meantime, we're gonna have to rely on probably some local contractors to help haul stuff for us and figure out what solutions there might be in the interim to rent or whatnot, to get the truck out here for our crew, because having just the one pickup isn't gonna work in their duties. Just highlighting again the concern and challenge that fire and EMS face at times with call volume and people responding to calls. Great crew is just, this is winter and sometimes people go away in winter for different lengths of time, and it's just, acknowledging that, that's that time of year. But we do have a few that have signed up for an EMT class or an EMT basic EMT class that'll be going, I think 4 or 5 of them that have signed up. Some at their own expense, some will utilize that fund that I talked about at the last meeting that will help pay for it. So hopefully from that, will help bring a few more on the fire, always looking for more people on the fire side of things too. But that's just kind of a constant need. We've talked a lot about it with Mark and Pat, and trying to find ways to kind of build the community around the need to fill and volunteer for those two services. An issue in a lot of rural volunteer services, and a lot of those have mutual aid coming. So it sometimes can make it work. We don't.
Right.
If we do, it's not quick. So just trying to kind of highlight that as it comes to my attention periodically. Library's gone through, it's finishing up its first phase of the strategic plan. I think there's a meeting tomorrow with me and Scott and a couple of the trustees to talk about kind of next steps and what they like that process to look like going forward to finish it off. There was talks about staff doing that, trustees doing that collaboratively. the possibility of an island fellow potentially doing that or hiring, to finish up that process. So they're gonna try to discuss all those things and what works for them. Talk about the transfer station. The compactor did get back up and running yesterday, and it was down for a few days. They went up there, you probably noticed the pile of trash in the
Yes.
container.
Yeah.
So they were having some of that go in the demo container, which means it's not compacted load, which means we're gonna pay a little bit higher price to get rid of that. Those loads there, we can't compact it.
Just one little kitchen bag, that's all I think we're getting.
That was just a failed wire, there's a wire that was just laid on the ground to run that compactor, and during cleaning up after one of the storms, it got hit with one of the Bobcat, and you can't see it when it's under all the snow. For some reason, it was never tacked up to the wall when it was installed, so now it will be. So, the budget workshop proposal that was talked about at the last meeting, I got up there for upcoming meetings, and then next, in 2 weeks, there's a offshore wind fisheries work group meeting at 4:30, happens to be on Tuesday. And then I've got a one-day interchange or workshop for the main managers at the end of the month.
Crap, we have a meeting, don't we? I was looking at the offshore wind meeting, but we have a meeting.
We do. Yeah, they're getting closer to wrapping up. I think the plan was to have those work group. The work group recommendations have gone forward to the full committee, and now it's a matter of kind of feedback and playing off of the larger advisory group to finalize the recommendations to go forward to the consideration.
Do you need to attend that one? Do we need to change the meeting?
Wasn't planning on it, but
Okay.
yeah, I can go for the first half hour. I assume you want to stay steadfast on the budget review stuff.
We need to get.
Yeah, we just gotta get to the
I
work.
just was thinking like change the time or.
I mean, we could always consider like a Saturday workshop and
No, we
make it a
can't. No, we
5 or
can't.
6 hour event. Or we could get through the whole thing in one day,
You're
and then you have
funny,
time to.
Take your axe on the road.
Andy.
You do it on a weekday too, that's fine.
Anything else?
That's all
So ordered by my boss to ask again about the.
Oh, right. So I have two people that are interested in renting the old fire hall. One would like to be, other than the vet, be like the only other tenant and kind of serve, fill the space like Chris did. Chris Clark did. And then another one that would like to use, I believe, 2 days a week for part of the year. I think it was October to April. Roughly, they have another space to use the other months. So both, I've reached out to the one that would like to, that's requested to have the space more dedicated to them, with the exception of the vet, and they said that they just weren't willing to, like, they're gonna want to set up tables and kind of have it more like a studio space. Again, kind of like, I don't know if you went up there to see what Chris Clark had set up, but in some ways more like that, not a big press or anything, but different type of work. So it's just 2 different requests right now, 2 different types of uses. I don't know how the board would like us to
I think that was
consider
misled
using that space.
by somebody. Slightly.
Well, first off, we have to, how much are we gonna be charging, I guess, is the first question, right?
Right,
Yeah.
so I know right now, the way the vet contract lease is set up, is there's $75 each time they come out.
Which is like once a month, is that right?
They're every 3 weeks, so once in a
And
while,
then-
it's roughly.
Yeah, and then aren't they like every 2 weeks when the weather's better, or they are
They,
just every
last
3
year, they
weeks?
posted every 3 weeks.
Maybe,
and
the
stuff
co-
like that.
maybe
There
COVID
was,
changed it.
they did a few years ago, I've come up with a little more frequency, and I don't know if that coincided with the increase in the rate or just what they were seeing. I mean, we had a different, another vet out here at one point, so I don't know if they're open to changing when it gets better again or not. When Engine House Press was leasing the space, they, I believe, were, I think, $300 a month for the winter months and $350 a month for the summer months. And they paid the utility, or a good portion of the utilities for the space, the exception of the water and sewer, because we added the public restrooms there. they paid the heat and electric at a large ratio.
I mean, I have to kind of abstain from one of them, so, but I would say that I feel like if there are more people that want to use it for different activities, that would be better than just giving it to one entity or person to use it outside of the vet. That would be my suggestion, but I will leave it up to the board.
I was trying to find that email, only can't find it. Anyway. I thought that that person indicated to me that they would share.
They had someone that they would share like the office space with potentially, once in a while. That's how it was described to me.
Okay,
But I did say like, hey, there is someone else that was interested, would it accommodate, what you're looking for? Could it be accommodated? And we could work out a reduction in the price, for not being able to use it those times. And they said for what they were wanting to use it for, it wouldn't work for them. But they would like the opportunity to be able to, I think it was a relative of theirs or a friend of theirs that wanted to use it as like an office space when they were there. Not to clear it out and have something different. But yeah, I mean, it's, where we were locked in for so long with just a dedicated tenant, plus the vet, it was just not something we've had to have open and available. I've had other nonprofits ask about using it, but then there was the challenge of their ability to pay to use the space. And so, whether we want to get in the business of trying to, I guess the decision to make is to consider, do you want to lock in something that's guaranteed and kind of just stays consistent, or do we want to your point, have something that's more of a community space to be able to use and just deal with renting it out and knowing who's using it when, and kind of all the legwork that goes with.
Yeah, there's a little more
Tracking that.
logistical
Right.
maneuvering with multiple
Right.
tenants
Someone would
using
have
it.
to, someone would have to keep track of the schedule and
Right.
the calendar and.
I know my recommendation, if there was someone that was willing and dedicated to pay year round and we knew what we were going to get from it and it could help fund, the building's costs, and if there's anything extra, it could go to the reserve fund to maintain the building. I
Mhm.
mean, I would suggest that be what I would recommend. Just because we know what we get, we could sign a longer term,
Right, well,
steady income.
We also had that before and had problems with that tenant actually paying.
Right.
So do we know this tenant is gonna actually pay?
I have no reason to believe they wouldn't.
If they don't, then.
But
it's
we could-
something-
We could write a lease agreement and be a little tighter on the expectation and say, it is due monthly, period. Or whatever frequency you want, and asking for some upfront potentially is, like most rents, you get a deposit upfront potentially. And
first
Well,
and
again,
for any
last.
damages that might occur.
I have to abstain from this anyway
Okay.
because
Understand.
of the other parties involved, so.
I was looking at trying to find that email. I wasn't paying attention when you said, all right, so what does the tenant have to pay beside the lease? Utilities?
It's just what we did in the past was that there was a fixed amount and it was different from the summer months, the heating months and non-heating months. And during the heating months, the price was reduced, I think, to 300 versus 350, if I remember right. And they paid like 90% of the fuel that was used. And then, which was part of the challenge. Now we're waiting for the fuel bill to come in, and then we're billing. And so, in the last budget, I think it was last year, I had proposed just a fixed fee, including the average used. And so there might be a year where we go ahead or might go behind, but set it at a monthly amount that includes the utilities based on past use, and just we get X, and not worry about chasing down the utilities actually consumed 2 months later when the bill comes in.
That makes more sense.
Just make it a little easier that way.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I don't know what commercial rental space
It's more than 300.
goes for, but
That's
Yeah.
not enough. That is way not enough.
right, I
Yeah.
mean, I know we still haven't ordered internet to be put in there, so I mean, that would be I think $50-60 a month roughly to have internet service in there, so we want to cover
Yeah.
that. I think so, I mean, that's what, maybe as a business
Spectrum?
account, it'll be more.
That's not Spectrum's. That's not gonna be.
We didn't,
Oh.
last year's budget, the board was not really in favor of the higher spectrum service that they suggested. I believe that Fairpoint was adequate. for the-
Whoops.
For the space.
I guess
I
I made a
don't-
mistake there.
I don't think that this person, I think this person wants the higher speed.
Yeah, the one I've talked to, they want to use it as like a, they have a nonprofit that they run
Right.
and they want to use it as, they can't get internet in their location out here and they want
Nobody
to have a
wants to use
space,
dial-up internet.
a space in town to rent that would,
Well, they have good service in town anyway,
Well,
with
No,
Consolidated.
no, you don't get good service anywhere with Consolidated.
no, I didn't.
Really?
No.
I got
Ugh.
Consolidated.
Oh.
No. No, you do not.
It was great.
I
when it
disagree. I
worked.
strongly disagree.
Well, I don't mean where you are. I mean like
And I'm a quarter mile from the nearest
In-
customer.
in
I-
town.
Spectrum.
I just switched from. to
No,
Spectrum.
Consolidated
Awful. I
is
hated it.
the worst.
Well, I might have to switch, but.
I would if I were
I
you. I
don't
would
know.
switch tomorrow.
Tonight,
Tell us
I would
how you
be-
really
could-
feel.
I would be
Tomorrow
gone.
night when I
stressed
get
Tell
home.
tonight when you get home.
How much? I would switch immediately if I could.
So how much more is Spectrum?
You
I
can get it for
believe-
like the same price and your speeds will
Yeah, I
go
think,
by 100%.
I believe
1000%.
that 100 over 10 is what 75 right now. I have the 400 over 20 or 95.
so I don't know, my plan was to get a draft of the lease out that we had used for Chris Clark's without the price and the rent amount in there, but just to say the terms agreeable or whatever, just as a draft to them. And then come back once I knew more, to
So this person will be here year round.
my understanding.
Okay.
At least paying you. Right?
So we think,
That's all.
I just,
we think the 300 is
it's not enough.
way too low, but
Way too
what
low.
are we thinking?
Well, I think it'd be good to get a better handle on all the costs once we get the internet installed and look
Right,
back at the past usage. I mean, we're not gonna have, when Engine House Press was in there, it wasn't constantly heated. It was, when he knew he was gonna go in there to work, he'd go and turn it on like maybe the night before in the morning and come back. And so we're not gonna get a good, clear picture of what the heating costs are for up
well,
there.
not only that, but I don't know about everybody else, but how was your electric bill this time
Yeah.
around?
Mine went
$1,000.
up. Mine only went up like $50.
Yeah,
Mine
Mine went up to
tripled.
$1,000.
Whoa.
Mine tripled,
Yeah.
$335.
Mine
Yeah, I
for
don't-
two
mine doubled.
rooms.
I
I live in
don't,
2 rooms.
I don't get it.
Mine
Mine only went
doubled.
up $30.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
my entire house is all electric. And then I
Oh,
also have the
the
studio
heat
too.
too?
Yeah, so
Oh, dear.
that's why
Not
mine was so
me.
much more, but still, you look at just a year ago, the usage is not much different, but the price is double.
Mhm.
It's ridiculous.
There was I don't know if anyone, I didn't get a chance to attend, but there was an info session on it last week, the co-op did about it.
I had no idea. I would have
Me
gone and
neither.
yelled at them because this is absolutely
I'm
ridiculous.
bringing mine down.
Um,
Next time I go to town.
yeah, the transmission fee
Well,
went
yeah,
up quite a
from-
bit.
Yeah.
12 to 20.
Yeah, it's what
But
CMP is
it's-
charging FIEC, I believe. is the
Oh,
problem.
CMP?
Yeah.
Oh, there
Yeah,
we
yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My-
we-
my
We
ele-
didn't want the corridor, so.
The
Yeah,
charge
they did the
was,
corridor, so
the
there's your,
charge to bring my electric was $180.
I don't know why
Which is
mine was what it was,
BS.
because, I mean, I don't have electric heat, but
Neither do
certainly-
I. I don't even have a hot water heater.
But I don't understand why everybody else's went up. A lot of people's went up like you two. And mine went up, and yours went up $30, mine went up 50, I think it was. What'd
Mine's
yours go up,
usually-
Eric?
100.
100,
Mine's
so,
usually 65 to
No, maybe not
65
even,
to
it's
$100
Yeah.
a month. It was $335.
I know, I
I'm
don't,
like, what?
I know,
mine
I
was
don't
just under
understand.
900 for the 2 buildings.
But
I have 2 rooms.
I have 5.
Well, I don't know, kids.
All
but-
right.
Sorry, we're getting off track
Sorry,
here.
getting off the
Back
subject.
to-
I-
Anyway.
I
We're
think-
still
I
in
mean, I
our
would
meeting.
Yes.
I'd recommend, I can come back with looking at past usage and trying to get a better sense of the average. And we just need to kind of figure out, do we want to do it for the first year, kind of how we had, where we both understand what the costs are to heat it and power it. At least through like the winter months or the first year. If it's more years after that, so be it, but we'll have a better sense of what the costs are, or if we just want to kind of set a number that we think is going to work, given that I think this could be used more frequently than it was in the past.
Does this person want to do it soon, right? Okay,
They both do.
well,
If you could bring it next week, or do we have to wait for a select board meeting?
You want to add it to next?
We could add it to the
week,
next week's
okay.
Yeah.
budget workshop.
Okay,
and get some numbers and
go from there.
Because that's gonna have to revise the veterinarian's lease too, right?
Nope, that's priority.
But even with the cost of fuel and electricity going up, it will stay the same.
Seems like 75 is still low.
Yeah,
Yeah. For one day, a month, or, one day.
Everyone's
$75
cost,
for one day.
everyone's cost has gone up.
I guess
I'm
we'd
not
have
saying
to-
it should go up a lot.
I guess we just have to think about if someone's gonna rent it for 30 days minus those once every three weeks. If that's $75 a day, does that mean there's 75 times 28?
right.
I think that, for a day rate, probably a little high. I don't know if we can go much higher without, at what point will they say? We
It's not
don't have,
worth
we
it.
don't have a bathroom in there in the wintertime.
Right. Yeah.
Once we get internet, they'll like that, so they can do transactions, but not having the bathroom there in the wintertime. Certainly is a big inconvenience for them and customers.
This is why we
um,
usually charge a different rate in the winter than we do.
Right, and they've
Yeah,
been a
summer.
fixed year-round daily rate, and they have a a space to store and lock their supplies.
There's no running water and the water's turned off in the
Turned off.
winter to the
Yeah.
building. right?
That's something I think with the Main Street project, if not sooner, that would be nice. I'd like to think that we'd want to look at,
Yeah,
not to keep the bathroom open year-round, but if people are gonna be using that space
there
year-round,
needs to be,
we'd probably, I'm just curious, like, what would it take to keep it so it doesn't freeze, and can we keep the bathroom upstairs running? If we're gonna have a tenant in there and people going in and out at
Right,
certain times,
that's gonna be hard.
I worry about, that's gotta factor into the rent in the wintertime.
yep.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, yes, get some numbers and then we can. decide. I had thinking that we should put a ladder on the float on the thoroughfare, on our side of the thoroughfare float,
Oh, to help get up out of the water?
in case you follow the board.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
So I would, probably won't happen until summer, but
Well,
if it
then
could
doesn't
happen.
matter, you can just swim to shore.
I know, but if it could happen, I'm just thinking because if it's iced up or if you couldn't work on it.
No, it's
you
a
know what I
good, it's a
mean?
good idea.
But I think that we should do that.
I think that's a good
ASAP.
idea.
Okay.
You can place one of those handrails, I guess, with the ladder instead.
Yeah, anything so that you can climb out of the water.
Right.
In the event, God forbid.
It just, probably should put it on the side that's generally reserved for drop off and pickup. The other side's gonna be
Yeah,
totally
boats tied up to
exposed,
it.
and
Mhm.
people tie up instead of leaving those handrails open for others, sometimes they tie up to them, and if we put it on that side that's generally used for the coming and going, that might be okay.
Yeah, wherever you think it. I don't
Either
use
that
the
or on
float,
the-
so I
I
don't
would say on
know.
the end.
Or on the end.
As long as, the mooring line shouldn't be an issue.
Mhm.
We'll look at it.
Good idea. Thank you.
Good
Yeah.
thought.
Who knows, might save a life.
And I
So it's the right-
think
Yeah,
that's.
just hopefully the life works.
Oh, okay. That's it. for
Anyone
me.
else?
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Good job. Thank you very much.
I had